And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining to a brand new Heimdal Security webinar. My name is Alina Marie. I'm the webinar program manager at Heimdal Security, and as usual, your host for this event. Once again, thank you very much for joining. It's a real pleasure to have you all here today. So, of course, as mentioned in the title of the webinar, today we'll talk about social engineering. But first, let's have a look at the agenda. I will introduce Heimdal Security for the persons that are new to the webinars or maybe haven't heard about us yet, and then of course I'll dive into the main subject, talking about it. What is social engineering in cybersecurity? The tactics that are used to manipulate you and your employees, as well as best practices to implement to better protect your organizations against these types of attacks. And of course, we'll also talk about our products and how our products can help you achieve a better cybersecurity postures. And for any questions that you may have, feel free to shoot them on the question box of the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll try to answer some of the questions during the dedicated Q&A session. For the rest that I won't be able to answer today, I will get back to you in an email. And at the very end, I also have a surprise for you, so I think you'll enjoy it. Stay with me until the end. Good. Now let's talk a little bit about who we are as an organization. So Heimdal Security, we're based in Copenhagen in Denmark. We're a leading provider of cloud-based cybersecurity. And we've actually been invented by some of the winners of what's called the DEF CON Capture the Flag tournament. If you haven't heard about it, this is seen as the World Hacking Championship, if you will. There you see teams for the likes of the NSA, FBI, other big security companies, freelancers. They all compete against each other to winning the competition. And in 2011 and 2012, our guys actually won 2 years in a row, actually, and it was the first time in the history of the competition when it was won by a non-US team. And then when our guys came back home, they said, you know what, if we can win this competition with our product, we can for sure fend off hackers. So this is kind of how they laid the foundation of what is now Heimdal Security. And really, what we do as a cybersecurity company is down the same lines. We are protecting your machines from any malware that's trying to get in from the internet or that's trying to exfiltrate data from your machines to malicious hackers over the internet. And of course, we're going to stop that with our Heimdal products. And we've been in the market with our products since 2014. We have some of the market's leading products in proactive threat prevention. And our threat intelligence is appraised by the FBI. It is endorsed by the cybercrime police in Denmark. It's called the NC3. And we're also involved in some work together with Europol and the US Department of Justice and something that is called the No More Ransom Initiative. On another train of thoughts, Royal Bank of Scotland, and we're honored for that, is recommending Heimdal Security as their preferred cybersecurity solution for their business customers. And as you may observe from our logo, we take our Northern heritage very, very seriously. Even the name Heimdal originates from the Northern mythology. Heimdal was the ultimate guardian that protected the Rainbow Bridge, the Bifrost, that connected the home of the gods, the city Asgard, with Earth. So just a very quick introduction about who we are and what we do as an organization. I hope you now feel a little bit more comfortable with us. And let's dive into the main subject of the webinar. So social engineering. What is social engineering? The term was popularized by in the IT industry by a hacker, actually, Kevin Mitnick. It was a world famous hacker that was active in the 90s. He later on turned to be a security researcher, and he actually wrote a book which is called the Art of Deception. But the definition of social engineering in IT security is an attack which needs human interaction and manipulation in order to succeed in accessing networks, locations, confidential information, confidential data, usernames and passwords, and so on and so forth. An alternative definition of social engineering, as described by CSO, is that of the art of gaining access to buildings, systems, data by exploiting human psychology rather than just by breaking in or using technical hacking techniques. Basically, in short, an IT attack which needs to exploit a human weakness alone or in addition to any technical vulnerabilities that they may found on the endpoints can be classified as a social engineering attack. Now, I found some interesting stats about social engineering, and 98% of cyber attacks rely on social engineering. It was revealed in a survey that 43% of the IT professionals were targeted by social engineering schemes, and they also acknowledge that new employees are really the most acceptable to social engineering attacks. 60% of them acknowledge that. And another interesting thing is that 21% of current or former employees use social engineering to gain a financial advantage for revenge, out of curiosity, or just for fun, so insider threats. Now, in 2020, hackers, haven't been dormant, so to speak. So 61% of organizations faced social media attacks and smishing attacks. I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes. While 54% of organizations experienced phishing attacks or USB-based attacks. But really, the worst part about all this is that a statistic is saying that 59% of the buyers are likely to avoid companies that suffered from a cyber attack in the past year. So I think this alone is a very strong argument and valid in the same time to make sure that you protect your business against any kind of cyber attack, not just social engineering. So in order for a social engineering attack to work, it must use psychological manipulation, as I said, so that it can convince the users to make security mistakes. And here, I'm going to talk about a couple of techniques that hackers use in order to manipulate the users. So the first one is the pretext. And here is when the attacker would pretend to contact you or your users for something innocent, maybe in order to establish a conversation, kind of build a friendly relationship. And of course, they will ask for more sensitive information once they have established a rapport with the victim. Next, we have baiting. And here's when the attackers will actually bait the victim into doing something unsafe, but for the allure of getting something that they want. For example, they can leave an infected USB with a label or on it that would say secret team bonuses or something that would arouse their curiosity. Next, we have the old-fashioned tailgating, and this is when the attack would just follow an authorized person into a restricted area, looking as comfortable or as belonging as possible, of course, with the aim of gaining access to that secure area and getting that information. Then we have impersonating. And here's when the attacker pretends to be someone else, someone with the required authority to make demands, like fake tech support scams, CEO fraud, business email compromise attacks. All these are common forms of impersonation. Of course, we have quid pro quo, when the attacker would offer you something and then ask for something in return. Of course, hiding the maliciousness of their intent, and they could ask for a password in exchange for maybe a cash reward or access to some websites or something like that. Maybe claiming to be some sort of researcher that's doing a case study or something like that. So all sorts of manipulation techniques that you can fall into. And last but not least, of course, is the good old-fashioned scareware, inducing fear. For example, here's when the attackers would pretend to be a third party, alerting you to some kind of danger. Someone hacked your account, someone broke into your social media, stuff like that. And of course, they're going to offer to help you, but in exchange for your credentials, because they would say they would require that. So just a couple of examples of manipulation techniques, but regardless of which manipulation tactics these guys are going to use, they're going to follow these steps that I'm going to talk about right now. So the first one's information gathering, and here's when the attacker would actually spend most of the time, because the likelihood of success in most attacks would depend on this, based on how much information an attacker would gain about the victim. Because of course, with the right information, the attacker can determine what attack vector to use, possible passwords even, likely responses, and of course, refine the goals if needed as they progress with the information gathering. Once they became comfortable, they're going to move to basically outline for themselves how the hacker would actually carry out the attack, and then it's going to move to basically acquiring the tools needed to exploit the weaknesses in the victim or in the system. And of course, this can be hardware and can be software as well. Then of course, it's going to move to the actual attack phase, when they're going to exploit whatever they found, trying to gain as much advantage out of the user or the system. And then once that's accomplished, they're going to move to the final stage, where they're going to evolve basically with the learnings that they gather during this cycle. They're either going to continue the cycle and restart basically to gain more out of the victim, or they're just going to exit, covering the tracks and leaving the victim unsuspecting, moving to the next target. So now that you got a little bit more familiar with the tactics and the steps that they need to follow for a social engineering attack cycle, let's see what types of social engineering attacks we have here. So first, I'm going to talk about CEO fraud. It's starting to become more and more common. Here's when the attackers would pretend to be someone with high authority, maybe CEO or some high-level senior executive in the organization, that required to perform things that should at least be suspicious. Things like, providing sensitive information about other employees, access to specific accounts maybe, or even, as we've seen lately, passwords, username and passwords, and also making payments to fraudulent accounts, obviously with the victim unsuspecting of that. And one thing before I move into phishing, with the CEO fraud, and I've talked more about CEO fraud and the phishing on the webinar talking about email security. But these can really, the CEO fraud attacks can avoid traditional spam filters, because they will look as legitimate as possible, as if they're coming from within the organization. So that's why they're very, very dangerous and hard to spot. Now, phishing, of course, I think everyone has heard about it. The most common cyber attack, if you will. It involves getting emails pretending to come from legitimate sources in general. And legitimate sources can be, I don't know, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Netflix, stuff like that. And they're going to try to trick you into sharing sensitive information, card information if possible, and of course, steal the funds. Then we have smishing, and I mentioned I'm going to talk about this as well. This is a phishing cybersecurity attack that's carried out basically over mobile text messaging, and it's also known as SMS phishing. Another spin-off from the phishing, if you will, is vishing, which is like phishing, but this is done over the phone, not using emails or text. And then a more advanced type of phishing is the spear phishing. This is also called whaling or rose phishing. Basically involves a more dedicated type of time for them to do research on the victim and then really tailor and customize their solution as much as possible, so that it's very, very targeted to the specific findings on that specific account, that like I was mentioning just a little bit earlier. And then last but not least, we have the fake applications or messages with fake attachments. And of course, in this situation, the attackers will act as if the victim requested for the attachment, for the message, for the file, for visiting a website, and so on and so forth. Now, the victims that are going to basically open those attachments they're going to actually allow the hackers to get malware on their endpoints, opening the door for future cybersecurity attacks, payload ransomware and other stuff like that. So now what I want to talk about is actually introduce you to some famous cases of social engineering. They're 10 at number, and you'll see that no one is really safe. Let's say everyone can fall victim to that. There's just a moment of letting your guard down or not being careful enough, or maybe you're tired and not paying attention, that you would allow hackers to infiltrate the system. So the first one I'm going to bring in is actually the original ransomware. That was a virus named AIDS, and it acted as a Trojan. It was released at a scientific conference by a biology researcher who claimed he wanted to raise awareness and money for treating the disease. Basically, this Trojan virus is the grandfather of all ransomware codes that followed afterward. And initially, it also spread via floppy disk, because it got emailed among the early victim, as they thought they were actually helping in the AIDS relief effort. And if we're thinking about it in this sense, the original ransomware also counts as a social engineering attack, as it really preyed on people's desire to help. Now, the following attack is very famous as well. Kevin Mitnick, the guy that I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. So he made a name for himself precisely for this attack. What he did, he was in league with some hackers who wanted to look at DEC's OS system, but said that, we cannot get in because we need some credentials. And then what Mitnick did is he simply phoned and asked for them. So he called the system manager from DEC, and he claimed to be an employee from the development team that was temporarily locked out from his account. And then the sysadmin provided him with a new set of credentials with even higher access level in the organization. This is how they managed to infiltrate into that organization. In 2015, Yahoo was hacked. It was a hack which resulted in hackers gaining access to over 500 million users, and it was a result of spear phishing, the technique, the attack type that I was mentioning just a little bit before. So what they did is that they only targeted a few high-level employees with very custom and tailored messages, so that in this way they managed to get access to the Yahoo ID servers, and from there on, the attackers use cryptography and fake cookies and other methods to break into the accounts of regular Yahoo users. Now, you'd be surprised, but not even the US Department of Justice is exempt from social engineering attacks. And that's, I think, valid for any organization. As long as we have humans working there, they can fulfill and be a victim of a social engineering attack. So what happened was that there was this frustrated hacker, and seeing that he cannot infiltrate the system because he was missing an ASCII code. I'm sorry, I have to drink some water. All right, so what he did, he simply called and actually put a Mitnick on them, if you're thinking about it, and then asked for the credentials. After obtaining the codes that he needed and information that he needed, he was actually able to proceed. He infiltrated the internal communication. He leaked some privileged information as proof of the hack, which prompted the US Department of Justice to consider its security more seriously. Now, I think we all heard about the advertising firm Cambridge Analytica. They were accused of manipulating the US elections and the UK referendum on Brexit. They were aided, of course, by Facebook insiders. They ran very complex algorithms and means based on any bit of information that they had on those profiles that they had at hand. So why I'm mentioning this is because the scandal really showed everyone that social engineering hacks can sometimes hit very close to the mark, in the sense that it will touch on the term's original meaning, that of changing a society. Now, in 2015, the Ubiquiti networks were infiltrated and they were victim of a business email compromise that allowed the hackers to steal, if you can believe, 46.7 million. So it was as simple as pretending to be high-level managers. They contacted the employees in different departments, especially in the financial department, and they request to make transactions, which actually transferred money from the organization to fraudulent accounts. In 2011, there was a breach on the RSA security ID tokens, which by that time, it was believed that they were impenetrable. So it seems that these guys lost 66 million in the process. And what happened is that initially the RSA employees received a fake email claiming to be from a recruiting party from another organization. And of course, that email contained a malicious Excel file that ran a code that would exploit a 0-day flash vulnerability. And then that allowed the hackers to install a backdoor Trojan into the infected computer. And they couldn't assess the seriousness of the attack at the time, but they were worried that the breach would actually affect the integrity and the functionality of their security tokens. So what they had to do, and this is where the majority of the loss went, they had to redo the product from scratch because of that. In 2013, Target was breached by the hackers. They hacked their POS, their point of sale systems. They managed to get information for over 40 million Target customers. And while the information was stolen really by a malware, right? Behind it was a very clever example of social engineering. So what these guys did, they knew at the time that they could, it was harder for them to breach Target systems. So what they did, they targeted a smaller fish, a supplier of Target, that had access to Target systems. So once they infiltrated that, they were able to move to attack Target, which was the real prize in the end. And this one is a truly fantastic story. It's in the 90s based. There were 3 brothers, the Badir brothers. And why I'm saying it's fantastic is because these guys, all 3 of them, were blind, but they really had a remarkable talent for hacking. They successfully combined technical know-how with social engineering skills. They could imitate all voices on the phone, including the voice of the investigator that was on them, if you can believe that. They were able to guess PIN numbers just by hearing a victim typing in the PIN number. They would also be very charming, chatting up secretaries for top-level executives, finding information about these guys. So all these skills help them successfully guess passwords and gain access to accounts. They were actually a very successful band of hackers plaguing the Middle East in the 90s. And now, last but not least, I'm going to talk a more recent attack. Is on Twitter. It happened in 2020. Maybe you've heard about it, the famous Bitcoin scam. It really kind of proves that not even big tech giants or can be left aside from the hackers. So what happened was that big personalities, high-level profiles, users with a blue check mark, people like President Barack Obama, Mike Bloomberg, and others, they tweeted double your Bitcoin type of offers by putting some Bitcoin there, and then we're going to double that. So by the time Twitter kind of realized what happened, because these guys really had millions of followers, it seems that the hackers were actually able to make over $100,000 in Bitcoin at a time, according to BBC. So if you're wondering how this happened, again, they went through a series of highly targeted social engineering attacks. They manipulated Twitter employees and managed to infect them with malware. And of course, from there, They made their way through Twitter systems and gaining access to the passwords for these high-level profiles. And from there, it was a simple job of just tweeting the message and the malware link that they put into that message that send the fake users to make the transfer. So as you've seen, as I said, hackers don't really discriminate. They don't really care who you are, how big or how small. They're gonna use every possible avenue, every possible attack vector to try and get the most out of you, whether that's information, sensitive information that can help them further, or money. So right now, before moving to the next topic, talking about how you can protect about these social engineering attacks, I have a poll prepared. I'm gonna launch it now. Hope you'll be able to see it. I'm just curious to know what cybersecurity solutions are you currently using to protect yourself or your organization. I'm just curious to know if you can answer that. So can you see the poll? Right, I can see, you can see it. Right, excellent. Right, I'm gonna give you another 20 seconds to vote. Yeah, I'm gonna share the results with you. This is awesome. I see a lot of people voting. All right, 5 more seconds. I'm gonna close the poll. Awesome. So let's see the results. Hope you can see them as well. So as I was suspecting, a lot of you are using a next-gen antivirus, which is great. And that's the basic defense that you can have. That's perfect. Then email security seems to be on the second spot. And that's, of course, very important as well. Making sure that you're filtering known domains that could be marked as spam, sending phishing emails, and that's great as well. Then some of you are using DNS security. You can find more about DNS protection. I have a webinar about it as well, and about our products as well. But what really surprises me is that only 36% of you are using user access management. And you'll see a little bit later why this is important. Now, precisely because these social engineering attacks would rely on people's trust, as I said, it is really hard to protect against them just through technical means alone. That's exactly what an engineering attack is. Tricking people, manipulating people into helping the hackers circumvent technical protections that they may be in place. So how do you protect against these attacks, you may wonder? Well, there's good news and there's bad news about it. The bad news is that no matter how fantastic your cybersecurity suite is, you can still get easily hacked via social engineering attacks if you place your trust in the wrong people. The good news is that as long as you keep yourself and every employee informed on what is social engineering, the latest techniques, you will not be vulnerable. And because of that, the top countermeasure for social engineering is, of course, cybersecurity awareness and education. You should run cybersecurity trainings at least twice per year. Show your employees how to check where the communication is coming from. Tell them what to do if they find that USB lying around with secret team bonuses written on it, or whatever about a label that it could be. Tell them how to act and what to do if they receive a suspicion phone. Tell them that they received a prize or something, or if the CEO is phoning them and is claiming, you need to, I'm going to send you an email, make sure you make the payment immediately. Teach them what are the processes and what they need to do in each of these situations. On top of that, there are a few extra steps that you can do, and that's still related to education. You can perform staff exercises, have like phishing tests, if you will, and get serious penetration testing as well, so that you know where the gaps are, know whether they're more in the human resource, focus more your attention there, or maybe on your systems and cover the gaps that you may have there. Don't recycle passwords. A lot of people are just recycling passwords. They have a password for the personal account, for the work account, for their social media account, for the Twitter account, and I know there are a lot of accounts that you need to manage, and it's hard to have passwords for that you would remember for all of them. But you can use a password management application, and always, wherever possible, wherever the service allows you to, use two-factor authentication. This will add an extra layer of security in front of the hackers. And you should also prepare for incident management, not just for prevention. Prevention is crucial. It's essential. It's going to avoid a lot of bad and unwanted situation, being in the headlines, the wrong kind of headlines. But you need to have a plan for what is going to happen should, God forbid, you would be the victim of a breach of an attack. Your employees really need to know what to do, and you need to have a perfect plan of who needs to do what. Put that in place, communicate it, and make sure that everyone knows what they need to do if something like that would happen. And whenever possible, and this is why I said I'm a little bit surprised that just few of you are using a user access management type of application. Enforce a zero trust policy within your organization. Don't trust anyone by default, not even regular user, not even the CEO, nobody. The more privileged the accounts are, the more damage an attacker can do if they will be able to infiltrate on those machines or on those accounts. So it's crucial to make sure you enforce a zero trust policy model within your organization. I hope this information helps. I hope you feel a little bit more, a little bit better, let's say, knowledgeable in terms of what is a social link attack, and you'll be able to recognize one going forward. Now, since machines, endpoints are connecting to the organization's network as well, even when people are working remotely, as we see, or hybrid, as we're seeing these days, there's a more proeminent need for access governance, and that really led to a very huge adoption of privileged access management solutions. Because, as I said, leaving default admin rights on endpoints could spell disaster. So what I want to do now is actually introduce you to one of our solutions, is our privileged access management solution that will allow you to do that. So for that to happen, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to share a short video talking about our solution, and then we'll get back to more information on the slides. So let me get this. Right, I'll stop.
Insider threat is one of the biggest dangers to companies worldwide. Every person within an organization helps turn the wheels. But as the numbers grow, system admins need to work with a sound access governance model. A study by Gartner places privileged access management as the #1 recommendation in the top 10 security projects. While Forrester research reveals that more than 80% of security breaches are tied to privileged accounts access. Thor Admin Privilege, our powerful privileged access management, or PAM solution, helps companies worldwide address all of this and strengthen their overall security. Just by deploying our PAM solution, organizations neutralize over 93% of all Microsoft vulnerabilities. To stay safe, organizations only grant users rights for single files or temporary privileges when needed. But without a PAM solution, your system administrators will waste over 30% of their time with manual escalations or installs. With Thor Admin Privilege, admin rights requests can be approved or denied with just one click or mobile swipe, while maintaining a full audit trail on each endpoint, even on the go. Furthermore, Thor Admin Privilege can also run in autopilot mode, with automatic approval of admin rights for specific tasks and users, or predefined group policies. The number of global data breaches has increased by 400% every year since 2016. Thor Admin Privilege eliminates this threat by proactively mitigating the first risk in any organization: users. It also provides a full audit trail of the user access history, ensuring your compliance with data protection regulations. What about the rest of your IT security? As a next-gen PAM solution, our suite is designed to work together with the rest of your defenses to strengthen them. Thor Admin Privilege is the only admin rights management solution on the market that provides automatic user rights de-escalation on firewall, DNS, or antivirus threat detection when used together with a prevention or remediation module from our security suite. Ready to free up system admin time and boost the productivity of your organization? Get in touch today and see what a complete privileged access management solution can do for you.
See my screen. All right, so what I would add, I hope you enjoyed the video and it made it a little bit clear why privileged access management is important and what kind of features we have there. So as a short recap of the video is that you can mitigate 93% of the vulnerabilities in Windows by using our solution that is really the most advanced privileged access management solution on the market. It can both escalate and de-escalate user rights. It can remove permanent rights on already assigned machines. It can help you to be NIST AC 16 compliant. It also allows for elevation of files, not just user rights. So, if a user would require to run a specific type of file, that can they can ask for approval for admin rights on that file, and then it would go through the unified dashboard to your system administrators that later on they can approve that or deny it, of course, depending on the application, or they can even do that from their mobile phones if they're maybe away and having lunch or stuff like that. So it will also allow you to free up a lot of time and have your users more productive on one side, but the IT department can focus their attention on more strategic tasks that they would need to accomplish rather than just granting user rights and for all sorts of employees within the organization. And as mentioned in the video, if you tie that with our next-gen antivirus or with our DNS products, would make our privileged access management solution the only solution on the market that can automatically de-escalate user rights even if permission was granted before upon a threat detection. So if one of those systems, one of those tools that we have, the DNS solution and the next-gen antivirus, would detect there's something wrong, there's a threat, they will automatically then pass on this information to our threat prevention module and then automatically de-escalate the user rights from that specific machine. Now, with this, you also get a full audit trail for everything that happened on that machine, what happened during the escalation period, what applications was run, everything is being logged. And on top of it, on top of the PAM solution, you can add our application control solution that would allow you to have privileged users that would execute files even when these were blocked for everybody else. And of course, that can also happen with requests. It allows you to either allow or block execution of application in multiple ways, whether by using file paths, whether by using MD5 hash, publish a certificate, or different type of software names if needed. There's a passive mode for system indexing and can automatically approve system application, can have a rule-based system as well. And it keeps a full audit trail as well. And this can also be used for the use of historic file execution that would allow for future allow or block decisions that IT administrators would need to make. So I'm not going to get into a ton of details on this product, just a quick high-level overview so that you know the main features of the products and the main benefits that you would get. Now I'm going to move to the Q&A session. Let's see what questions I have from you today. I'm just curious to know, so have a look at that. Questions. So someone's saying that CEO is a very serious threat. How can we link this protection of CEO credentials with password management? To remember multiple passwords and frequently changing them is not easy. Single sign-on approach has also some issues. Well, in this situation, as I mentioned, having a lot of passwords can be difficult. But in order to avoid CEO fraud, the passwords are not the only thing that can keep you away from that. Of course, these are important. You can use a password manager for that, but you would need a tool that would be able to understand. And we have our email security, email fraud prevention module for that. What that would do is it would actually look at 125 different type of vectors that the traditional spam filters won't look at. It will look at the phraseology. It will look into attachments to identify banned accounts, fraudulent accounts if needed. And these are just a couple. There are a lot more. And I talked about that in the email security webinar. But that would help you to better avoid CEO, BEC, and VEC vendor email compromise scams. Another questions is related to how to better mitigate insider threats. Well, that's why I wanted to talk about privileged access management, because in my opinion, there's no one single type of security solution that can do them all and protect you against all attack vectors. It cannot be true. DNS security, patch management, privileged access management, they all should be part of modern cybersecurity stack in any organization to protect you against a huge chunk of insider threats. But as I said, a zero trust policy model within the organization would, even if the users would be a victim of social engineering or any other type of attack, even if the hacker would gain access to that account, there's not going to be a lot that they would be able to do, because there's not going to be any privileges. So they cannot run anything on the machine. They cannot install anything on the machine without permission. So just by blocking that, 93% of the vulnerabilities are going to be blocked, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Okay, another question. So what trends do you see in social engineering? Well, I wish I had a crystal ball to foresee and prevent, but leaving the jokes aside, what we notice is that people indeed are taking cybersecurity more seriously. They're more cybersecurity conscious today, if you will. But there's something that's not going to change, and that's the human factor. We still feel good when we're doing good, when we're trying to help. The hackers are still going to rely on that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. It's human. It's making us human. It's all right to help. It's all right to want to help. But what I'm saying is that we should be a lot more careful before, helping someone, because that someone could actually be a hacker and it would help him do you harm. So that's why you need to be more careful about it. How do you enforce a zero trust principle in a way that has the least impact on the employees? Well, I think the communication is very important on this topic. A lot of organizations are just putting in restrictions that are not communicated. That creates frustration. It disrupts the workflow of certain teams or certain people in the organization. So if you communicate properly, if you explain your employees why are you imposing those restrictions, what would happen if you wouldn't, how would they be affected, you would actually get their buy-in and they will know, they feel more comfortable, they will know what to do in certain scenarios, as I mentioned. And I'm sure that this is going to help organization adopt the zero trust policy model much more efficiently. Let me see if there are other questions here. Yes, someone is saying that trends in social engineering is to take advantage of current world events and crises, and that's absolutely true. And that is happening. They will take advantage of every scenario, every situation when there's panic created. Recently, when the COVID pandemic started, right in that period, there was a spike, 600% spike in the phishing emails that were being sent out. That's huge. So from 1 month to the other, 600% increase. That's absolutely huge. There's another example, one when there was the volcano that erupted in Haiti, and the next day there was already a website that was up and running, claiming that they have information about the victims, and people would just go in there and put in their personal information, email addresses, phone numbers, mother maiden name, and other sensitive information. The hackers would then collect that information and use it against them. So that's very true. That's a very good remark. Someone's asking how you can basically identify a link that would come from a malicious actor, someone maybe pretending to be a cybersecurity organization. But for that, you would need some sort of spam filter. You would also need a DNS protection. Even if you don't identify it, and if it's completely unknown, but our DNS protection can actually, with 96% success rate, predict if a domain which is not being used maliciously yet is going to be used maliciously in the future. But let's say that's not going to be the case. When you're going to click on it, if there's going to be something malicious on the DNS request, then our DNS protection is going to block it. And a very simple trick we can do, and I'm showing that during the email security webinar. You can find it on our website on the webinars page, so heimdalsecurity.com/webinars. You just hover your mouse over a link that you would receive, and even though on the body of the email you'll see http linkedin.com, let's say, if you hover your mouse somewhere in the browser, most of the times on the lower part of the screen, you'll be able to see that there's a very completely different link that's going to show you if you just hover your mouse over that link. And it's going to be a link that doesn't really make sense and has nothing to do with the link that's described in the body in the email. So with that, I'm going to conclude the webinar. Thank you very much for the questions. I'll take the other questions that I haven't answered. I'll take them offline and get back to you with an email on that. Now, let's move to the part that I think you all been waiting for, a little surprise I've prepared for you. So what's going to happen is that you can get access to a 30 days free trial of our products. You can test drive them, convince them, test drive them for yourself and convince yourself that we put the money where our mouth is, let's say. And our cybersecurity consultants are going to be in touch with you the next days. Basically, they're going to call and try to perform a free vulnerability assessment, telling you, where you may have gaps in your cybersecurity suite. They're going to ask a lot of questions, but this is also your chance to ask them as many questions as you want, related to our products, pricing, everything else that you have, any concerns that you may have about our products. Just feel free to ask them. I'm sure they will be more than happy to provide that information to you. And on top of everything that I've just mentioned, in the next couple of days, you're also going to receive an email from me that's going to contain a free license key for Heimdal Threat Prevention Home. for 1 year and 3 devices, so that you are going to have your own devices protected at DNS level with our agent. So with that, I conclude the webinar. I thank you very much for participating. Thank you for your questions, for the interactiveness, for answering the polls, for bearing with me up until the end. I'm very happy to see so many of you attended. I hope to see you in the future as well on future webinars. As I said, if you're looking for more information on different cybersecurity topics, you will be able to find a lot of webinars on heimdalsecurity.com/webinars. So you can check them out there. This recording is going to be available as well if you're going to use it as a refresher at some point in time, or I don't know if you want to share it with someone on our webinars page as well, probably in about 24 hours. And before post-webinar, there's going to be a link survey that we're going to ask you a couple of information about the webinar. Please answer that survey, provide us the information that that we need so that we can build better content for you in the future. And that's about it. Until next time, as usual, I wish you to be safe and stay safe, both offline and online. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a good day. Bye-bye.